Okay, so we're going to go into verse 9 today. And like I said, I tried recording it on Sabbath and there was
Yeah.
no volume. So I spoke for like an hour and a half and it was catching all of the video image, but there was no voice.
Wow.
Oh, that was a little disappointing, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'd rather be able to share it with you. To have the interaction. It's better for me to have interaction.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up my cheat sheet here, and then I'm also going to pull up, um, let me see if I can get us on what am I on? Are we there? Oh no, that was the one that needs to stay open as well, because we're going to be talking about that verse as well to link it in. But here is our Matthew 25, verse 9. And this verse says, I can get it right here. But the wise ones answered them, saying, let it should not suffice for us and for you, but go to those who sell and buy for you. That is John Etheridge's translation. And then King James is, but the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourself.
Yep.
So in looking at our breakdown that we left off the last time that we talked, let's start at the beginning here. We were talking about, this was the one verse that was really pivotal for us to see that the foolish were asking the wise to give of their oil. And as they were coming from a place of being really rent in their heart, because their light was diminishing. They realized that things were not being the way they thought it would be. And we saw that the whole process was that judgment was coming to them because they didn't go through mother's teaching. Like they were the first one to receive the Father's mark in his covenant and learning the power that comes through the esoteric side of the language, but they didn't go the way of the right hand. And we saw that, which I thought was fascinating, was that even in the word wise, when they first showed up, because they both had fallen noons, but the word wise literally had the word yamin to go to the right hand. So they went through the right hand process of it, but the foolish didn't.
Right.
So if we remember, that was one of those kind of disturbing
Yeah.
verses in going, oh wow, because we can really see what is happening in the timeline of where we're at and what is going to take place with the foolish wanting to have the oil. But they
Right.
didn't, they didn't, they're not approaching it in meekness, because in the word, when we were looking at the anointing, we were showing how they were grasping a hold of the power, because of Kaf Yod, they're grasping a hold of the power, but they were still in their diminished flesh suit, because
Yeah.
they wanted to have the power here in the material realm in order to control and
Yes.
subjugate everybody, right?
Right.
And we see that. I mean, we see that. I was
We
always,
did.
and I don't know if you've seen this, but I think I mentioned it before, but I was always really fascinated with different shows, movies where they would show the Hebrew letters. And it usually had something to do with magic, and it had to do something with more of the dark arts. And they would
Yeah.
always show Hebrew letters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't understand back then. I mean, I literally, in a place of purity and innocence, not realizing that a lot of the magic is based upon Hebrew.
It is. The secret societies, that's what they use
I
is
know,
the
but
Hebrew. They know the
and
power of it. Yeah.
exactly. But when you come from the purity and innocence side of going the way of mother in the light, you just it's a concept that is so foreign, right? Like
Yeah.
taking and using this hidden power that's within the sacred languages in order to control and manipulate for selfish gain, because you can use the letters and help create your environment like what we're doing, which is the right way of doing it, by
Yeah.
studying them, seeing what they're doing, and seeing it through the light, so that when it shines into the dark, hidden teachings, you are serving others. So when we're digging out these scriptures and putting this in the collective consciousness, we're actually releasing more light through the dark, hidden, brought forward into the light. It's a completely different way of looking at it. But the foolish don't. They don't
Yeah.
want to do that. They want to stay hidden in the shadows and they want to control and manipulate. So now I
Yeah.
can understand why the power structures have been set up in the world the way they have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this verse that we went over last time, verse 8, was like, whoa. And why they come to the wise who go to the right hand to get their power because their light is diminishing, because they are in self-ish, right? Selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Selfishness, self-fire. Ish, again, Hebrew, just breaking
Mm-hmm.
down. Self-ish is that selfish nature is actually consuming them from the inside out. And why that light is diminishing, because we're all born with a certain amount of light. But if you're not putting light in it and you're in the selfish fire, it's going to consume it. Hence why the lamps are going out.
Yes.
And we showed at the very end, word kind of flipped all my words around here, but we were showing at the end that what they were missing on the suffix side of the father was there was original yod hey on it, and they don't have the yod hey. And the yod hey is the representation of mother, who is joined on the father's side, the light and the dark that have combined together for the power, and they don't have the light. They don't have the yod hey. So just need to lay that foundation out as to why they're coming forward, and
Yeah.
that the teaching shepherds of light and what they're doing as the power of the right hand is that they're the ones that have instructed. They have now become the teacher's mother. They've become mother, the light bearers of mother's side, because everyone has to enter in through that side.
Yeah.
And I get super excited when I dig out words and I see a lamed added on the suffix side, because that is a light shepherd of father,
Mm.
one that has gone into the dark, the hidden, but is now able to teach from that side those who are ready. So that's like the message of maturation, the
Yeah.
intimate place going into queenship, or Melchizedek, or Malach, not Melech, but Malach, the angelic messengers that have the oneness unity. Those are the ones that are standing on Father's side. And those are the judges, those are the ones that are coming back to help restore, prosperous and peace with the people, because they're the ones that have that authoritative power. So mother and father, even though they're unified, one is presenting one face, the other one is presenting the other. And when these show up, the ones that are on the father side, that is going to bring a lot of dread for people that didn't enter in on this side.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Mm-hmm. I
that
see
balance
that.
between the light and the dark neutralizes it. But if you haven't been over here and the judges show up, it's going to look like it's dark and it's going to look very scary.
Yeah.
So that's what we were dealing with the last verse. So now in coming into this, now the wise are giving their response. So we see the fallen flesh asking for their light, and now the wise are going to be responding back. And I love this verse. All of these verses have been so profound for me to dig out. The
Yeah.
richness
Yeah.
in the parables, it just blows my mind.
Yeah. They're amazing.
Ah, and how much is left out in English? 5% makes it across in the translations, and even with that, much is twisted. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm going through every letter and every word, but I want to scoop out as much sustenance, the meat, and
Mm-hmm.
not leave anything behind. It's like, oh, you missed a really critical piece right there. And of course, the only thing I can do is extract what I see. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot that I miss. I don't even go into the vowel points right now unless it's, certain ones that I need to look at, because Spirit's saying you need to share this right here. But there's just still so much. But how can you eat all the food on a banqueting table? You can't.
Right. Right.
you know,
Yeah.
it's there. This time you come and you're going to have a little bit of here, a little bit here, a little bit here, but there's still a bunch of food left on the table. So
Right.
you never go hungry.
No.
So here's the wise response. So they start out and they're answering them. So of course, if the request was made, the answer is coming. And this is beautiful. I love this, because the word that we're looking at in the root is ein yo or ein nun aleph, but the aleph is removed
Mm.
because they are not one with the
Mm-hmm.
foolish. So they can't respond to them in the oneness unity, because the foolish have chosen to separate themselves because they're not of the light. They've chosen that complete dark side. So there's no way of unification into one. So they have to respond to them, not with the oneness unity. So what instead is the yod is put in place. So now what we're seeing is that they are answering them through the power of Father. So remember, I was saying, so you have, they're presenting themselves, they were the teachers, you know, the foolish realize that they're the teachers on mother's side and they're coming to them, but through the wisdom and discernment, the teachers are like, I can't teach you. You're not humble, you're full of pride.
Yeah.
So now they're responding in having power given to them in their response, in their answer from the Father. So this is much more authoritative than just speaking from the mother's side. It's from the Father that they're responding.
Yes.
Because, and that would make sense, right?
Uh-huh. Yes.
So part of that, if you want to call it as a rebuke, but part of it is we understand the power, but we are giving, we're not taking, because the other ones, they had a cough yod. They were grasping a hold of the power, where the wise, they give, they don't take. And because they give, they've been given the power of the Father to be able to say, you never went into the proper door. You went into the wrong door first. So they're listening. So when we look at the Aramaic word, of course, they're saying that only has this meaning, but there's many, many, many more. It means answer, respond, hear, and listen. So I can even connect that with Shema, you know,
Mm-hmm.
listening, intelligently hearing,
Mm-hmm.
with then being able to respond because they know what's going on. So um, it's interesting too, because it means to be occupied and busy. So what are they being occupied with? And why are they busy? And why are they saying we're not going to teach you? Well, because they've been given the eyes to see. So this comes from the temple of Anath, the Bayit Anath, the temple of answers. So they are busy doing their work, being able to give to others who are on the same spiritual path, not the ones that are trying to take the power. They're busy doing stuff. That's also one of the reasons why they're not going to, I don't want to deal with you
Mm-hmm.
because I'm busy with these people that wanted to go on the right hand path and now they're entering into the Father's. I'm busy
That's good.
my spiritual work because I was given the power to do so. I have the authority from the Father. I'm busy.
Yeah.
And look at this. It says to give oneself and be devoted to. So they were given the eyes to see the spiritual path and they've devoted themselves to the spiritual journey. And interesting that the same spelling means flock and sheep. So my sheep that hear
Yeah.
my voice, that become and follow the lamb, and we shared that before, that it was De Amar,
Yeah.
Dalit Amar, that are entered in through the door of the word, which is mother's teaching to raise them up. These are the sheep that are busy about doing the work of that which they've devoted themselves to, which is the spiritual path. And that's what they're responding about. And when you take the foundation of Hebrew underneath of it, to eye or to heed, pay attention to respond, to begin to speak, sing, shout, testify, announce, this is the work that they're doing. But it also means that they were humbled through their affliction. And because they were humbled, this is why they are able to be busy about their Father's work, because they were given the power, because they aren't working in pride like the foolish were. And so what's needed to be done, again, this is just reiterating to us the importance of humility and teachability, and
Yeah.
that really the only reason why the foolish came to the wise is they want their power to keep their light diminished or keep their light going, which means they want to take from the wise, which is exactly what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
Those rulers of the world have been taking from the wise, those who have gone the right way of the right hand path, taking their light from them in order to keep their lamp full. But this verse is basically saying at the beginning of this, and we're going to see that the wise are making their stand and saying, no, Not anymore.
Mm.
You are not taking our light anymore. So when we move into the next word, this is one of those, I just love it when I see stuff like this. We've shared this before, but it always makes me giggle. Lamed Yod has been added on the inside of this word. So it's
Mm.
instruction on the inside that gives us power.
Mm.
So we have the power of the Father as we stand and testify, and we are speaking and announcing and standing and speaking to the foolish. And the reason why we have the power is because we were instructed on the inside. The Lamed is in the place on the inside that is our own authority by the work and deed of our own hand of what we did on the inside to work and change us, to deliver us from our weak and humble position. The weak and feeble, I should say, because dal has to do with being lean, being spiritually lean and delivering ourselves, because there's really a spiritual concept of being made fat in the spirit. So you start out being lean and you deliver yourself and you fatten yourself up in the spirit, which then gives you a larger footprint. This is, you think about aura expansion, even thinking about when Peter's shadow, fell, because
Mm.
his footprint in sovereignty and his ability, because at that point he knew the codes, he was walking in the codes because Yeshua taught him that, and he was walking in a much greater authority. He was not lean with spiritual authority, he had been made fat, and it's connected to shaman, sheen mem nun. That's literally what it means, shaman.
Mm.
Yeah, if you think about the word shaman, and it's Shem, those of the name that are walking in the flesh. And that's not a bad thing. There's an anointing because they have water and fire. They've gone through the purifying fires and also the waters of purification of fire and water while they're in the flesh. And so they have been made fat and shiny. So this is really connected to that, because this is the instruction that happens on the inside that allows us to be part of the shamayim, Shem, Mahim,
Mhm.
the upper waters, because we have to have it. And this word also means behold. The hey noon, which is the root, means behold. We are those that have been instructed on the inside, and we have light. We are teaching shepherds. We have authority and we have power that has been granted us on the inside. And we delivered ourselves from our weak and lean place. We've been now made full. And what have they been made full of? Wisdom. And here in the verse before, it had a lamed in front. So this verse is, the lamed isn't there anymore, because they have moved into the place of instruction on the inside. So they're saying, you need mother's instruction, but we're not going to do that anymore. In other words, we have turned our chairs out from the outward, and now we're instructing ourselves on the inside. That time has passed. I, I'm too busy. I'm focused and devoted into doing what I need to, because the power was given to me through the Father so that I could do the finished work on the inside. And they're the wise and the prudent ones. They're the intelligence. They're learned. They're skillful. They have wisdom, knowledge, and counsel now. And so knowing again that originally that they took the right hand path, because they did, they're the ones that have success and they have favor. Because they prepared, they were appointed, and because they did prepare, they are now the prepared. So at this point, what's going on is the finish work is being done. So they've turned their chairs around from facing on the outside to instruct all the people out here. And they've realized that at this point of where we are, we've had to turn inward and instruct ourselves on the inside, because we got mother's covenant and we've got father's covenant. Now we are looking to have the covenant with all source, all father, in connecting with that third Tav. So we're instructing ourselves on the inside.
Mm.
So one of the other revelations that we shared with before, that it wasn't something that I had originally seen, but I didn't know, I brought it forth last week, was that when we take a look at the word for wise, um, it literally shows that they have life. Because het is connected to life. They have life over death because they grasped a hold of the power on the inside. Like, instead of grasping the power
Mm-hmm.
through the language on father's side, they grasped what they needed to tame and yoke themselves, that gave them the power to have life over death in entering into the oneness unity. Because as we've shared before, inculcation, every time when we incarnate in here, we
Mm-hmm.
enter into death because we have an expiration on our flesh suit. So these are those that have now found, because they knit their garments of light. We talked about that before, that their vessel, the word vessel actually meant the garment, and it went into
Mm-hmm.
light. So they were making their garments of light, and now they have life over death. And because it was Yod Mem, we know that it has to do with Asherah as well, the Queen of Heaven. I just love that.
Yeah. Mm.
And it's interesting because I think when I was looking at this before too, in connecting this, is that Spirit had showed me something that I had never seen before, but it's a principle that I've seen in many words. And the Spirit said, I want you to look at this word. I want you to look at this word. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, so why am I digging this out? Look at this word here. I'm gonna highlight it to you, and we're gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna show why the Spirit said that we needed to look at this. Het nun kaf. It means to narrow, figuratively to initiate, or to discipline. Now, what happens when we remove the noon? It means that it is a highly spiritual matter that no longer pertains to the flesh.
Mm.
So by removing the noon, that's what we have right here. It's not a fallen cough,
Mm.
it's a risen cough. So the
Mm.
wise, because they went through the right hand path, because we know that the noon does have a risen noon attached to it, because the spiritual path is connected to our flesh suit. You know, you're designed to find the spiritual path because it's connected to you already. Your DNA, it's trying to lead you to the spiritual path. But because they went through the process they did, they are no longer of that fallen flesh, or even dealing with the flesh at all. They have evolved into high spirit beings at this point, that have removed their teaching from the external, because they're doing the finished work on the inside that isn't really pertaining to flesh at all, because that's all the spiritual work. You know, the flesh has already been taken care of. They've already dealt with that. And so how amazing with this word, because it is used in Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way. And there's the word right there. Put them on the narrow path, initiate them into the discipline of the spiritual path that will bring them life. But they have to empty their cup in order to fill it, because they're here, and we need to take out all of that stuff. So this is speaking to anyone who's wanting to be initiated on the spiritual path. You have to empty your cup out of the worldly things, of the lesser language that is the alpha language that is meant to control and manipulate us and subject us, in order to tame yourself to the language that elevates. And then the very next word. So we have children. This is like a young lad, but it has a lamed added in front of it. Teach your children, initiate them, and then instruct them on the spiritual path. Because eventually, in the beginning, you're going to look like an adversary.
Mm-hmm.
Einresh. Just like in the very beginning, when the bride and the groom showed up for the meeting, they looked like an adversary, even though they were coming as a special friend. Initially, they were looking like an adversary. Well, guess what? To a child, a spiritual path is going to look very adversarial to a child who needs to be raised up. But it's meant to what? Ein Lamed, to elevate them, to ascend them, to mature them. Pay, yod. You don't see this in English because it says train up a child in the way. Well, here's direct, here's the way, right? But they skipped over this in, the, I keep highlighting the wrong letters, but ein lamed, it's not let me do it, but ein lamed, conjunctive dash, pay yod, is the process of ascension. So they would have the eyes to see the purpose of the instruction through the rod of correction, the staff of authority, through the mouth that is speaking and giving them power to walk in, because now they're now the way is taking, they poured out their cup, now they're yoked to the spiritual language so they can connect to Father. And that's just in that short little phrase right there, to train up a child in the way. And it shows us that it's instructions of ascension. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
So when we see it in here without the noon, it's because the wise already went through that path and they don't have, this isn't a flesh issue anymore. They've dealt with it and they found the narrow path, and it got them into the path of discipline through mother and through father, where they would have the ability to discern when to turn their chairs in and when to turn them out, of being able to rightly divide and saying, I can't teach you. I am busy doing my Father's work. He gave me power. I am devoted to it. You need to go elsewhere to get your teachings. And so then we go into, to reiterate, it's the same word that the wise or the foolish said to the wise, saying to them, it was the very first word, same spelling, but this time we have mother there. They are saying again, you need to connect to mother in humility. That's why the Vav's there. You need to be teachable. You need to let mother raise you up, because, you know, our heart's crying out for you as well. It's supposed to be a cry of joy, but this is a piercing cry because you made the choice. We're seeing your light being diminished and we are choosing not to help you because you went through the wrong path. So we're telling you, we are declaring that you need to connect to mother. You need to go into the path of humility because you didn't. You bypassed her. And so it's very interesting that in the Song of Deliverance, where this Ren comes from, and I did share that before on the other verse, that deliverance, it goes from a palat to a malat. So it's the mouth that speaks. So it's coming through the waters of chaos. Then the mouth speaks and brings deliverance to you. You're going to have to wrestle with it. But it also means to escape and to deliver. So in connecting to songs of deliverance, with this cry that's coming forward, the wise are saying, you need to deliver yourself of that ego, of that pride. And because you're still in the waters of chaos, you're wanting to stay there, but we are speaking to you and instructing you that you need to go deal with it and you need to go wrestle the tet. You need to be surrounded, which we are. I mean, that's why we're all in quarantine. We're surrounded here in Earth and we're wrestling. And we need to be drawn out of the basket, Moshe, right? Moshe is Hashem, just different order, it's a mirror. We need to be drawn out of the basket, but they're still in the waters of chaos and they haven't humbled themselves. So this is all connected. This is all connected. You need to deliver yourself. And then they ask, and then I find this really interesting. The question is why? Like they're saying, instruction came to you. It was there. Why? Why did you choose to stay in the lesser waters when you were supposed to be instructed in the way of one? So if you look at this a little different, this is really the word low, which would be translated as not, that has mem. So they're saying, why do you still have chaos in the inside of you? because you were supposed to be instructed in the way of one, but you still have waters of chaos in you because you're
Wow.
creating chaos,
Yeah.
right? You are creating chaos in the world. You're creating chaos through your power, and the instruction came to teach you in the way of one. So, in other words, you're going to still have chaos in your life until you learn the way of one. It was there, but you chose not to do it. It's like, you can't make this stuff up. It's like right here. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, they have chaos on the inside. Of course they do. So then it says the no and not. So why not? You got chaos. So we're going to tell you one more time and affirm it to you that you need to be instructed in the ways of one,
Mm-hmm.
because we're not going to give you our oil and we're not going to teach you anymore. You need to go find it. So the word lamed, like literally lamed, lamed, dalet, the constituent letters that make up the symbol, it has the meaning of the rod of the teacher. To learn, learned, studied, put together, compiled, brought together, connected, to teach, was trained. All of these things are all within the lamed. So they're saying through their authority, look, you need to have all of this stuff brought together. And of course that would make sense because the aleph is added, right? You need to bring all of this stuff together. You didn't do it because aleph in the base origin, get this. So base origin of the lamed means to learn, to prick, to sting, incite, and goad. That's the base origin based on what Kleins says the etymology of lamed was from. The etymology in the beginning of the base origin of aleph means to be linked together and to be connected. So the instruction in the way of one is meant to bring everything together, to connect it, to be taught and to study, to have this knowledge so that you can connect and be connected. So it's really interesting to see the base origins of the literal words, lamed mem dalet, aleph lamed pei, where we have these symbols right here that have that information to see that it's literally instructing us of how to study, how to gain the knowledge that we need to be connected. And we know that aleph is a representation of yod he vav he, because the two yods and the vav that actually form the symbol in gematria is 26, and the gematria of yod he vav he is 26. So the other things with the aleph we know is that he trained, there's taught, teach, was tamed, yoked, bringing forth thousands, and to be part of a tribe as 1,000 people, as family, and the thousandfold anointing. Bringing all of this together. And so they're saying you didn't do any of this. You didn't do any of this. So you have chaos on the inside. You have the waters of chaos on the inside that you haven't been delivered from. In other words, if you're in the waters of chaos and you haven't come out of it, then you haven't been birthed. You are in the matrix. So even think about the womb matrix. You haven't been birthed anew. You are still the same being. And then we get into the word. I love this. Look, I always say that. I'm sure people get tired of me saying, oh, I love this. It's so amazing. Carrie, you say that every time. I know, I can't help it. So the question is saying, okay, how come this didn't work? You got chaos on you. You need to learn and be instructed so you can bring all this together, because really the teachings were sufficient for you. And the root is Semek, Pei, Kuf. So the noon was added. So again, everything is being directed to mother. You need to take the spiritual path of mother to elevate your flesh, because you're in the fallen. She's going to help you lift it up through the spiritual path so that you can be surrounded, propped up, supported. The mouth is going to be bringing revelation so you can compress light, because they're all dark. You need to compress light within you, and you're going to end up being pierced, because this semek also means a thorn. You're going to be pierced. You're going to be pricked. Going back to the lamed, sting, prick, goad. So you're going to be going on that mother's side, and it's not going to be a fun journey for you because you took all the power and now you have to get humbled. And so you're going to be pricked and you're going to be prodded. You're going to be stung because you didn't find light and you never compressed it within you. But the teachings were there and it's sufficient. So in Aramaic, other definitions is to be enough. It's sufficient. It's fit. It'll satisfy you. But it also means to empty and to lay bare. And we know that mother's whole process, again, we're talking about the prideful, selfish ones that have father's power that need to be stripped bare. So if you can connect to that to Ken's teaching about entering in at the West, it's really the introduction of mother being stripped bare. Like you got to start all over again. And this word has an idiom meaning learning means to understand and be competent. So what's being said is it's sufficient enough for you. You need to learn the ways of mother because that's when you're going to have the understanding necessary to be competent in being able to compress the light so you can find balance. So when we look at the foundation side of Hebrew, divine masculine, because we just shared the divine feminine through the Aramaic, this root means to be sufficient, suffice, he supplied, furnished, made possible, enabled, satisfied. So again, if we take that mother is teaching the divine masculine, there's this foundational piece that is talking about furnishing what we need to supply us for our spiritual journey in order for us to be fully satisfied and supplied and being given what we need to say that we've supplied ourselves enough so that we can succeed. And look, it means to join and to attach. So they're separated. And all of this is the foundation of mother saying, look, the reason why your light is diminishing is because you haven't attached yourself to the light. So of course it's going to diminish. But through mother's spiritual path, you're going to have everything that you need to have abundance and have the ability and possibility and the capacity for the light to come and fill you up because you've been in dark too much. And without it, I find this is interesting because the opposite meaning means to doubt, to regard as doubtful.
Yeah.
So when we see the negative side, the resolve always comes through the letters, right? I say that all the time. The resolve always, always, always comes through the letters.
Yeah.
If you have doubt, it's telling you, well, you never entered into the spiritual path of mother. Because if you would have, you wouldn't have doubt anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because that spiritual path is going to give you what you need to overcome and be sufficient, to be competent, because being competent is the opposite of having doubt.
Yeah.
Right? Wedding ring, signet ring, the language that brings revelation, so you can compress light. That which was once hidden, dark, now revealed by the light, and finding the narrow path between the two in the circle of time. It's all right here. But again, we don't see it in English, but how amazing is that? So if anybody is listening or watching this message, if you have doubt, in order to be competent, you need to take the spiritual path that mother presents, not a religious one, a spiritual one, because it's the spiritual one that'll allow you to have experience that changes you, not head knowledge, heart spirit experience that produces change, that changes your walk, changes the way you see. It's the work and the deed of the hand by the experience, aka known as the path of mysticism, where you experience the divine so much that when you have the experience, you leave the other side and leave out of that experience having been changed. And we know that in Greek is gnosis. So intimate knowledge is not what people think. And I've heard other people say, well, that's self-love. And that's, and no, it's not. It's experiential knowledge of touching the divine and the divine touching you, so that when you come out of the experience, you've been moved and you've been changed, been transformed. And that's what this is talking about, leading us in that path. And then we have, again, Now they move into this place where they're saying, you need to have instruction because you still have fallen flesh. Because that noon was added to the Lamed. So this instruction is meant to help you with your fallen flesh. And I think this is very interesting that the noon, when you look at it, it has another meaning that I didn't see before until I dug this out. This was new revelation for me.
Mm.
It means to waste away, to generate, and become lean as the letter. So when it's in the fallen position, it means this: to waste away, degenerate, not
Yeah,
regenerate.
regenerate would be the opposite. Yeah.
Exactly. So it means he caused to degenerate. And again, when we go back to the previous verses, their lamp was diminishing. Their self, the fire, they're meant to be burning ones, right? Seraphim.
Mhm.
We've got this combustion engine and we're burning where hearts are burning. Well, that because they have the fallen flesh, the fire is coming against them and consuming them,
Yeah.
causing them to degenerate. I mean, there's so much that I could say about what those that do in the dark to try to regenerate themselves to take the light from those other vessels, but I don't want to talk about it here. A, because YouTube flags things. I don't really want to bring that discussion in because there's so many people that are discussing about what they do to take the light. But this is showing because they have fallen flesh, they're degenerating. It's like no wonder why they have to do it. And if anybody is interested in it, go watch the Maze Runner. You will connect so many dots. If you watch the Maze Runner series, you are going to see it because even in the end scene, the rock, when they put all the names of their compatriots that lost on the journey, the rock itself has an Aleph Tav in Paleo Hebrew on it. I
Really?
fell out of my chair when I saw it. Ken and I was like, oh my gosh, the Olive Top. And it's called Safe Haven.
Mm.
And they literally wrote the Paleo Hebrew Olive Tov on the rock, Safe Haven.
Wow. Crazy. That's the new Maze Runner?
That's the very last one. But really, in order to comprehend the fullness, now, because when the movies came out, because of things that have come out in the last several years of certain things that they extract and take from young people, when the movie came out, there was no dot connecting. It was like, I don't understand this. But if somebody were to watch that series now, based on things that have come out in the news in the truth movement as to what they were using children for, the dot connecting is incredible. It's like, oh my gosh, they were showing us this, that this is what they were doing. And really, this disease, this wasting away disease that they had, we're seeing it right here in this verse with the fallen noon, to waste away and to degenerate, to become lean as the letter. Oh, it's just blows my mind. Blows my mind. So we're getting down to the last little bit here. So we have the 2 and 4 again. Now notice this. We have the same as we had before. This was another Lamed. So we have 2 and 4, 2 and 4. So the very first one was instructing the fallen flesh because you're wasting away and generating, right? But you need to understand, again, connect to mother. You need to be humble. Now watch this. I love this. This Lamed Kaf is many times the word for halak, your walk, your halach, where they've left the hay off. And it's still the walk. They are saying your fallen flesh needs to be instructed, but you need to walk in humility. Because without humility, grasping a hold of the Father's power is going to still leave you in fallen flesh. That's with the added cough. So your walk needs to be in humility. Then, so Aleph Lamed Hey, or Aleph Lamed Aleph, meaning but or but rather. Also, I did some more digging on this. I spent a lot of time trying to prepare because I really want to dig deeper, because I feel like there's even deeper revelations that are coming. It's like more light is increasing, more revelation is coming, more direction from the Spirit to say you need to dig deeper here. Drill down a little bit further. So this Aleph Lamed Aleph, they say but or but rather, right? And we can see it's the covenant of the pieces, because we have mother on the right and we have father on the left and we have instruction in the middle. So mother and father, instruction in the middle. It's the covenant of the pieces, the seraphic message, the flaming torch going through the covenant of promise, inculcation there. This is a contraction of lo. Lo. Being mother, lo. And this, okay, this is so amazing. So if not or unless. So it means if not or unless. So if not, if you're not going to be instructed by mother, very next word, then you need to depart and go. Now, this is what's so fascinating. Because of the position of saying you need to be humbled and taught by mother, this is the contracted word, meaning the mem is removed. And because the mem is the fallen mem, really, it is saying that if you go through the covenant of the pieces of mother and father that are trying to teach you the way of one, right? Because we have we have God, God, instructing in the way of one, the mem, the waters of chaos will be removed. And what were we saying up here earlier? You have the waters of chaos on the inside. Why? The instruction was there. So again, connect to mother in humility, because it's going to affect your walk. Because if you don't have a changed walk and walking in humility, you're still grasping a hold of power. You're going to stay in the flesh, because the instruction is going to remove the waters of chaos from you. But if you don't, go away. Depart from us. Go away. It's interesting to see something here, though, that I was chuckling when I saw this, because this word, so it's depart and go, and it's from Azel. So you can even think Azazel, but Azel. And in the Aramaic, because in the Aramaic, the root is the same as the Hebrew. It's exactly the same. So the foundation is the same in the masculine as it is in the feminine. But in this regard, there is no Aleph. The Aleph has been removed. Because again, here's the instruction for it. But because you are not one, and because you're still in where? Yod Nun. You still want to grasp a hold of the power and keep your fallen flesh. You need to go. Because now the sword is coming against you. Because the Zayin is a weapon. This sword of the instruction is coming against you. Because you still want to hold the power and have the power while you're in the flesh. And it's interesting because Spirit was showing me earlier on, we were seeing this word. And what happened? Okay, so the hay was removed from here. Like for halak, it's not there, even though the word lamed kaf, the letters by themselves also mean to walk, but you have no revelation because you haven't entered into mother yet in humility. But it was saying earlier on, it's the revelation that you need that's going to instruct you on the inside, giving you the power to deal with your flesh. But because you didn't, look what changed. Now you have the sword that has come against you. And it's interesting that this is an idiom, meaning it goes for nothing. It's absolutely useless. And it's euphemistically used to mean to die. Like the sword is coming against you. You're choosing to still walk in your fallen flesh, and it's really useless. It's absolutely useless. It's for nothing. It's all vanity.
Wow.
So you need to go. You need to go away and leave. And you need to go on the same journey that all of us took. But this time the sword is against you. It could be a plow, but it's trying to cut off your fallen flesh because you're still walking in pride and arrogance and you never humbled yourself. And it's interesting too, because in looking at this in the primitive root in the masculine side, it's to go away, to disappear, to be gone, but also exhausted. So remember, as their light is diminishing, they are losing their strength and they're becoming exhausted. Hence why they're saying, we need your oil. Because they're realizing that because they stayed in that fallen flesh state, they are now entering into weakness and helplessness. So they took all that power, but they're really weak. So for us, when we see the powers of the world, the hidden hand, the ones that are in the darkness, technically, they're the weak ones. And they're the ones that are going to be helpless in this time of the revealing because their light is going out. Hence why this is a euphemism to die. Because remember, the wise have life over death. These do not. Now, I find it interesting too because the resolve, when the hay is removed and the zayin is put in place, zayin, this is it interesting? So the word zayin, okay, so the constituent letters means to arm, a weapon, to equipped with arms, was armed. It also means to adorn, an ornament he adorned and decorated. So if they humble themselves and go through the teachings, then it reverses it. It no longer becomes a sword, it becomes the plow.
Mm.
So that they can be instructed. Because these teachings are meant to equip us. It is the sword and the plow that equip us, which is also part of the adorning and the bedecking and decorating ourselves, because we went through the process of allowing the plow to come in so we could plant the seed and allowing the sword to prune us and cut off which no longer serves us. And in that situation, they definitely, this pride, right? So now the zayin was before, so the next word says, so that sword is now against you. It's now against you. Because the instructions are you are to connect with your heart and be marked with the covenant of love. And it's in the presence of the sword. That's why we have to link the words before. You are now in the presence of the sword. Because really, the sword is against you because what was supposed to happen was this revelation was supposed to come so that you could unite. And we were seeing that before with Olive. Everything is about gathering the pieces, collecting so that we can unite to become one.
Mhm.
And then we have the word that means to be nothing. They have it as who, what, and which. But when you look at it, because the Aleph was removed right here, we have the word ayin. And ayin, in its root, is also connected to Enoch was and then was not. It's the same ayin as that root word to be not. Same thing that happened to Joseph when he was thrown in the cistern or the well. He became nothing.
Mhm.
But this is showing us that this is all the humble process of becoming nothing and diminishing that beast ego, because of why? The instruction came on the inside. So again, over and over and over again, you are missing it. You haven't humbled yourself. You need to enter into mother, because really at this point, you need to be humbled and emptied of yourself. And the sword is going to come against you until you become as nothing, until you choose to instruct yourself on the inside. Because really, we have again the covenant of the pieces. We have vision of mother and father, their power on both sides, because they give, they don't take. And that lamed is going through the middle, which is a representation of the seraphic message that is going between the two hands of power, that is meant to make you nothing, but that's where everything is. We're talking about 0 point. And beautifully, the first 3 letters of here, the Aleph Yod Lamed, this is the word Ayil, which, believe it or not, is like the root or one of the movements before the word God. So when you trace it down to where God comes from, it's Aleph Vav Lamed, then Aleph Yod Lamed, and then Aleph Lamed. So this is part of the making of the strong leader teaching shepherds that have power on the inside. And that means this word, Aleph Yod Lamed, means ram, head, chief, projecting pillar, pilaster, and to be strong for the sense of development as a head or a chief leader and power and strength. And pilaster is a representation, an idiom for priest. So those who have been instructed on the inside have diminished themselves. They've gotten rid of the beast ego nature so that they could become the priest in the pillars. They've allowed the instruction on the inside so that they could diminish their flesh. So this is actually telling them the roadmap that they need to do if they choose to humble themselves. You need to become nothing. You guys are all pride up, puffed up, you're in leadership position, but really you're weak and feeble. You're really helpless. And if you really want to be raised into power, then you need to go through the proper instruction, and you need to start with being humble first. You are nothing without instruction on the inside. Then we go into the buying or the selling, to buy and sell. The root is Zayin Bet Nun. So again, look at this. The sword and the power of the sun. Now, if we want to connect this to Yeshua, we totally can, because he came to build, right?
Mhm.
He wanted to build this message starting with the divine masculine to bring the feminine. So buying and selling is going to those that are the sword and the plow that are going to help you build yourself on the spiritual path.
Mhm.
Because we entered into the door of the waters of chaos, hence why we need the sword and plow that is going to help us build ourselves from the inside out by the spiritual path that we need to give us the power from the Father to deal with our fallen flesh. This is Dam, blood. It is in our blood. The door to the living waters. And that's all on Mother's side. So again, when we were talking before with the Semek, the Nun Semek Pei Kuf, in order to compress light within the blood, you have to enter into the door of the blood, which is the covenant of promise, which is the covenant of obedience, which is the covenant of Shema. To hear and to do, to allow the fire to purify you, the waters to purify you, so that you have the eyes to see and you're hearing intelligently and you're doing. But you got to enter into the covenant of promise. But it's still going to be a sword and plow. So in other words, no matter what, you're going to have to deal with the sword and the plow. You can't escape it, because you need to build yourself back up, because you're going to be stripped bare. You're going to be made absolutely nothing. In order to build, you're going to have to go through it, whether you want to or not. And then the Father can give you the power that you need to deal with your fallen flesh. But the sword is still there. You can't escape it. And so then it's repeated. So it's telling you what you need to do. And then it says, but remember, you need to connect to Mother and you need to let her pierce you, as it's followed up with the weapon.
Mhm.
And I find it interesting too, because Dam, one of the translations of Dam is also blood, but it's also bloodshed and blood guilt. So when you take a look at the powers to be, the hidden hand of the things that have been connected to them. That is why the sword and the plow is against them. And it's the sword. And this is why those who have service to self, they skip the heart chakra. Mother's job is to pierce your heart so that the sword can come in and cut you more. Because then you have to remember what you did. And you're going to have to go through it, because that's what strips you bare. It makes you nothing, because you realize that what you did is you took life and you didn't bring it. You took the light and you didn't bring it. You were in the darkness. And so this is really the restoration that is necessary for them to deal with them working through the issue of bloodshed. And that is amazing to see that. So it's very hopeful. I mean, I can see what's going on here, but at the same time, I'm like, the resolve is right here. The resolve is literally right here. You have to humble yourself. You have to go through the issue that there was bloodshed. You're going to have to go through it, and you're going to have to face the piercing of your heart being rent. Hence why the cry at the beginning, the wren, that cry, that mournful cry, is like the wise know what the foolish did, and their hearts are ripping for them. It's like, I am in so much sadness for you because you chose to go this path. And I have sadness for you because I hate to be the bearer of bad news for you, but you're going to have to go through this yourself. You're going to have this anguishing cry emit from you, because you're going to have to take accountability and responsibility for the bloodshed in order for you to be reestablished. You're going to have to face it. Oh my gosh. It's just...
Yeah.
And so then it ends up again saying, you need instruction, because as far as we see, you're still trying to grasp a hold of the power while you're in the flesh. So again, they're saying, you do not have meekness. You do not have power under control. And this should have been Kaf Vav Nun. Kaf Vav Nun is different, because Kaf Vav Nun on the suffix side means that they have meekness. They're not looking for grasping a hold of the power, because Kaf Vav Nun means to be set up, established, firm, straighten, made straight, and put right. But by the end of this, it shows that they're still not humbled. Because had they been humbled in the process of this, this would have been a yod or a vav instead of a yod. So it's still saying, you're still trying to hold on to the power. You're still trying to grasp a hold of the power while you're in their fallen flesh. And we just told you the sword is coming. You need to go. You need to go through the sword. You need to go through and take responsibility for your bloodshed. But you're still not wanting to. But the instruction, the walk, still has to be made. You're still going to have to walk it out. And it's your choice. But the instruction is meant. It's like you still have chaos on the inside of you because you're refusing to have the inward instruction, which is teaching the heart. And they bypass it because they don't want to feel it. Because in order to do the bloodshed and the things that they do, to take the light, they have to turn off their heart. Wow. So that is what the wise share with the foolish.
Yeah. Wow.
So when we look at it from the macro and the micro, in the micro, in our little circle of an influence, I mean, we can even see this speaking to us specifically. So, for example, if someone was dealing with narcissism and they're in that place of woundedness and they've turned off their heart and they're in that very much black and white immature world, right? Because really black and white is in that 0 to 12. They haven't entered into the place of reason yet. So they're still a child and they cause harm and hurt, which is what I was sharing with yesterday on the verses in Romans. This message is really in the micro aspect speaking to them. In other words, if you go down this path and you don't connect to your heart, the sword is coming against you in order to pierce your heart. So the judging that's coming is not one of those judgings meaning that, oh, we're going to we're going to clobber them, they're going to go to prison, all that. It's like, no, the correction is coming to pierce their heart. It's not the judgment of us saying, lock them up, throw away the key, hang them, kill them, which a lot of people want to do. And I don't blame them, because taking light away from vessels, especially innocent children, that is not right. That's very horrible, because they're taking the power. But the sword that is coming is meant to humble them and pierce their hearts so they can deal with their bloodshed.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason for it. And so when we say that we want judgment, it should be that we want their heart to be pierced so that they too can be restored. Not to just beat them up, because they chose to enter in this incarnation holding the negative pole in the sense of duality. They chose to hold the dark pole, while the others chose the light pole. And some of them are trying to go towards the light, and some of them are holding in that spot. And we need both in the system of duality. But for us in our maturation coming up higher out of duality, which the wise do, they can see the purpose of the sword and the plow. And they're telling them as it is. But because they have the Father's covenant, they aren't the love less ones. They're the ones that have love full, because they've been instructed on the inside. They have the power on the inside to see at a higher level, to say, look, this sword is meant for you. We're for you. We're not against you, but we're saying that if you choose to stay this, you need to go. You need to leave. So this verse is really talking about the harvest. Because if you choose to stay in that, you can't stay here anymore. Because the whole earth and everyone is ascending to higher levels of consciousness based in love and light. And you are in hate and darkness. Because you refuse to raise yourself up. So the sword's going to come and it's going to cut you. And hopefully it will pierce you enough that it will change your nature. And then you will become the wise, even though you're still in your fallen flesh. Like at the very beginning, you will choose to go and enter in on the right hand path. And then you can become the wise instead of the foolish. It's so amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So I see it as hope. I see it as hope, and I see it as mercy, and I see it as loving kindness. That time and time and time again, the instruction is always there. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. But it's, it's based on choice. What are you going to do? Are you going to humble yourself? Are you going to choose to be teachable? Are you going to allow the sword and plow to come in your life? Or are you still going to hold on to the power that you want in your fallen flesh? Because it'll be seen in your walk. That's the crazy thing with that last word. It's saying your walk is going to show what you want and what you're doing.
Right.
Because in Gala, in Giliana, in the Revelation, it is revealing those who are of the light and those who are of the dark, those who have the anointing, those who do not. Anyway, I think this parable is flippin' amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because we're right there. I mean, we're living this.
We are
living this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Really good.